As President Zelinsky said, they don't target the leadership. Russia does. Russia will use this as an excuse to probably do something like that, but it is highly unlikely that it came from Ukraine.
الفيديو اللي هعرضه عليكم ده لخبير عسكري بيتكلم عن تفاصيل هجوم طيارات الدرون على مبنى الكرملين محاولة لاغتيال الرئيس الروسي، وده بعد ما ادعت روسيا إن أوكرانيا هي اللي قامت بمحاولة الاغتيال.
With your expert eyes, what do you see as the drone explodes right there?
Yeah, right there, Boris, what you're looking at is a direct hit. So the anti-aircraft weaponry that the Kremlin has deployed around it for protection purposes, was clearly engaged. And it seemed, to my eyes, it seems as if they knew exactly what they were shooting at and when that target would be arriving in their area.
Another thing that's interesting, there are two people apparently climbing this dome. And I also wanted to point out there is a large stage and seating here. It's in anticipation of May 9th, Victory Day, a big symbolic day for Russia, perhaps a day that Ukraine might have wanted to target.
Well, that's possible because, as you said, Boris, May 9th is a really big holiday from a military perspective in Russia. This is where they show a lot of their weaponry, have done so historically ever since the end of World War II. And you see the 9 May signage here, the Russian flag in the sands. All of this is getting ready for a major military parade. And so from a symbolic perspective, it would make sense for somebody to attack something like this. But it also would be a perfect place to mount a false flag operation.
That is a good point. And as we take another look, this is a new angle of the drone exploding. You see it here in the upper left. And this view is important because of the context, because of what you see. This is very close to Red Square. Yes. St. Basil's Cathedral is just off to the right there, not far from Annunciation Cathedral as well. You imagine that this area must be very well protected.
Absolutely. And, if we look at the map right here, Red Square is right here. This is where the parade would be taking place. Right. Annunciation Cathedral, that's where the Tsars received confession, where there was their personal chapel during the time of the Tsars. So that's a huge symbolic place as far as Russia is concerned. And they would obviously want to protect it. And St. Basil's, of course, is very famous as part of the Kremlin structure itself.
So to the point that Jim made about the credulity of the Russian claim that this was Ukraine, let's pull up the map. This is some 300 miles away from the Ukrainian border. You imagine that this drone didn't even take off from here. Right. Given what you know about Ukraine's capabilities and Russia's capabilities to see what's coming, does it seem likely that this was a Ukrainian attack?
Unlikely for that very reason, because the Russians have radar installations all along this area right here, and the place where they would most likely be launching something like this from would be about here. And given that fact, that's a little bit longer than 300 miles. It would take a lot of fuel. It would take loitering time that some of these drones have. Now, it is possible that Ukraine could have mounted this operation from inside Russia using special operations forces. That is not beyond the realm of possibility, but it is unlikely, even though they have mounted attacks allegedly against the areas in the south, against air bases, things like that. So these are areas that can be targeted, but it's very difficult to do that. And as President Zelinsky said, they don't target the leadership. Russia does. Russia will use this as an excuse to probably do something like that, but it is highly unlikely that it came from Ukraine.